Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. Karen tried to steal my donuts. It didn't end well for her. It was a cozy Friday morning, and everything was absolutely fine. I'd been looking forward to this all week. My favorite bakery was doing a limited release of artisan donuts, and I managed to lock in a pre-order early. The second I walked in, it smelled like fresh croissants, cinnamon sugar, and warm glaze. You know that smell. Instant comfort. I got the notification that my order was ready just as I parked. Perfect timing. I went inside, already imagining the flavors waiting in that box. I'd ordered maple pecan, lemon lavender, brown butter chai, and one seriously good-looking strawberry cheesecake donut they only make on Fridays. As I stepped in, I saw the white pastry box with my name on it sitting on the counter. Right next to it, a woman, probably in her 40s, loud voice, big sunglasses, and way too close to my order. She was eyeing the box like it was her personal property and even tapped on the lid. I paused, thinking maybe she was just being nosy. But then she turned to the clerk and straight up said, "That's mine." The baker hesitated. "You're Sarah?" "No, but those are the ones I ordered. That's what I wanted." I stepped up and said, "Actually, I think that's mine," and I pulled out my phone to show the order confirmation. She looked at me like I just insulted her dog. "No, I ordered these exact ones. That's what I came here for." The baker opened the box and read off the slip. "This is for Sarah. Pre-order placed 2 days ago for pickup at 9. I raised my hand a bit. "That's me." Instead of backing off, she crossed her arms and scoffed. "Well, I got here first, and I told you what I wanted. You should have given me that box. It's what I would have ordered if the app hadn't glitched." Me. I already paid for them. It has my name on it. She completely ignored me and turned back to the baker. "Can't you just make another box for her? I'm already here. I shouldn't have to wait." The baker looked exhausted but stayed polite. "Ma'am, those donuts were specially prepared. Some of them are limited flavors, and we don't have extras. You're welcome to place a separate order, but this one is already claimed." Her voice got sharper. "So, you're just going to let her walk out with the last strawberry cheesecake one, when I've been telling you for 10 minutes that's what I wanted?" The baker didn't even blink. "Yes, because she ordered it, paid for it, and it has her name on it." At this point, other customers were definitely watching. One guy was sipping his coffee with that slow, deliberate enjoyment of someone witnessing live drama. Another woman gave me the, "Can you believe this?" look. But the lady wasn't done. "This is ridiculous. Terrible service. I come here every week." The baker stayed calm. "And we appreciate that. But you still need to order like everyone else. I can't give you someone else's food." She clearly wanted to argue more, but had nothing left. She muttered under her breath and stormed out, yelling something about leaving a bad review. The moment she left, everything returned to normal. The baker handed me my box and gave me a small shrug. "Sorry about that." I smiled. "No worries. Thanks for standing your ground." As I walked out with the box, I could practically hear that lemon lavender donut calling my name. Yeah, the whole situation was absurd, but it definitely made the first bite even sweeter. "So what if you pre-ordered? I manifested those donuts." "You also manifested public humiliation." "The app glitched. That's basically corporate gaslighting." "You know what else glitched? Your brain. A long time ago in a Facebook group called Truth Moms for Freedom." Am I the jerk for asking my wife to choose our family over hers? I posted on here a bit ago about a situation when I sort of forced my way into a zoo trip my wife had planned with the kids, my parents, and my in-laws. Family went to the zoo. My mom referred to my wife as a single parent since I had temporarily moved out of our home for 6 months. I snapped at her and took my son and walked off. A lot of people thought I was the jerk for doing that, even though that wasn't the point of the post. But now I found myself in a similar situation and tried doing the opposite, and it doesn't seem to be working out any better. So my wife has already told me that I'm the jerk in this situation, even if she didn't use those exact words, and I know nothing Reddit has to say about it would change her mind, especially since I won't and can't tell her that I'm even posting about it. but I'm starting to question my own judgment a bit here, so maybe you can set me straight. My wife and I are in the middle of a really rough patch in our marriage. We separated for 6 months, and even when we ended the separation, the issues that caused it weren't fixed. Long story short, I lost my job when she was pregnant and didn't get a new one immediately. That left the financial burden on her, and she felt betrayed and wanted space, so she asked me to move out. When I moved back in, I was sleeping in the basement for quite a while. She's refused any sort of physical contact, and we've just started marriage counseling. Second session was last night, and in marriage counseling, I've come to learn that her family more or less hates me, or at the very least, doesn't trust me. Like, not at all. During our marriage counseling session last night, our therapist said that it was important for us to start spending more time together, both as a family, with 2 kids, and as a couple. My wife was resistant to the idea of date nights, so the counselor reframed it as exposure therapy. Basically, she said that neither of us will ever get past the barriers that have built up in our relationship if we continue to essentially live separate lives. My wife seemed to understand that and was fairly receptive to the idea, at least while we were in the counselor's office. Which brings us to this weekend. In America, it's a holiday weekend, and our family has a long-standing tradition of spending the 3-day weekend at my in-laws' camp on a lake. My sister-in-law and her family come, and most of my wife's extended family pops in at least for an afternoon or evening or two, even if they don't spend the night. Some of her and my sister-in-law's friends from high school usually drop by for a catch-up too, and I know my wife has been trying to reconnect with friends in an effort to find an identity outside of just being a mom and a wife. But given our current marital strife, the knowledge that my mother-in-law has actively and repeatedly tried to convince my wife that we should not be together, which I've known about for barely a week, my new and growing worry that my mistakes are now a black cloud hanging over my relationship with all of my wife's family and friends, and that due to space constraints, we'd not only have to share a room, but also a bed, it seemed to me like heading to camp should be a no-go. My wife didn't agree. In fact, 15 minutes after we got home from our marriage counseling session last night, she started packing up for the weekend. But she was only packing for her and the kids. She didn't come right out and say it, but it was pretty obvious, even to usually oblivious me, that the plan was for my family to go to the lake without me, even though we had just been told a little more than an hour before that we needed to spend time together. I tried pointing that out in a calm, non-confrontational way, using the "I feel" statements that our therapist suggested. I said to my wife, "I feel like this weekend is a really good opportunity for us to spend time together as a family, and I really feel like if 3/4 of us go to camp, that isn't just living separate lives, but making a point of living separate lives." At first, she thought I was trying to be included in the trip and go with her and the kids, much like I forced my way into the zoo trip. I quickly explained that no, that was 100% not what I wanted, and what I was hoping for was that she and the kids could stay home with me. There's a whole bunch of picnic, barbecue, and block party events going on in and around our neighborhood, and I thought we could go to some of those and spend time together as a family. In my head, starting off by doing something as a whole family instead of just as a couple would build in a buffer for her, would give me a chance to show that I can be a real partner in parenting, and would let her see me in what I know is my best light, as a dad. That was what I thought in my head, but apparently my head and my wife's head were not on the same page, as she said no to that idea by saying, "I want to spend the weekend with my family." One thing our therapist stressed repeatedly was that to have any chance at productive conversations, we both need to avoid any kind of escalation in our communication, which was probably because things escalated more than once during our latest session. So I took a deep breath and did not point out that spending the weekend with me and the kids would be spending it with her family. And despite what many Redditors have said I should do, I didn't lay out any ultimatums or ask her to cut back on contact with her family or suggest that she was planning some kind of lakeside hookup with some guy my mother-in-law might better approve of. But this is where I might have been the jerk, or definitely was according to my wife. I tried sticking to the "I feel" idea and told her that I felt like if she took the kids and went to the camp without me, especially if she went less than a day after our counselor said we needed to spend more time together, that she was making a choice, and that choice was clearly not us. So in her mind, for all intents and purposes, I did give her an ultimatum. Do you think she took that well and we were able to have a calm and productive and healthy conversation about it? and maybe even come to some sort of compromise? Do you think I'd be posting this at almost midnight on the Friday of a holiday weekend because my blood pressure is through the roof and I can't sleep if she did? She told me, in no uncertain terms, that I was a jerk for laying that all on her, reminded me that it was my choices that got us here in the first place, stopped packing, and after making sure both kids were asleep, she went into our bedroom, which has been only her bedroom for the last year, shut the door and locked it. And now I have no idea if I'm going to wake up to my wife and kids waiting to hang out with me and spend the next 3 days together, or if they'll be on the road to camp before the sun is even up. I do know that she thinks I am absolutely the jerk, and I kind of think she might be right. Am I the jerk for telling my wife she was choosing her family over her family with me and the kids? When you've been running on empty for a long time, even small gestures feel huge. Be careful with that feeling. It can trick you into treating crumbs like a feast. The weekend matters, yes, but the pattern matters more. Keep your eye on whether time together becomes consistent or whether it only appears when there is a second ask attached to it. Keep your voice calm. Keep a written record of agreements. Let the counselor referee the hot topics. That's how you protect progress without turning everything into a test. You are not wrong to want the first reps to be local and low pressure. Cabin weekends are not neutral when the room is full of people who have already decided you're the problem. Your plan to grill, do block party stuff, and handle bedtime under one roof is not avoidance. It's a smart on-ramp. The line you used about choosing separate lanes was clear. If she hears ultimatum in every boundary, counseling is the right place to work that out. Stay steady. You can't control your mother-in-law. You can control your behavior and your tone. If your wife thinks every "I feel" is a trap, that's something to bring to therapy. In the meantime, stack small wins. Handle school forms. Take on bedtime. Do the invisible tasks. Make the house feel less like a holding area and more like a home. Even if this marriage does not recover, your kids will remember who kept showing up. Update. I got a comment yesterday wondering if my silence was a positive or negative sign. Well, it was a sign of a crazy week at work, so I thought I should take the chance to post an update today since I have a bit of time. I mentioned in a comment reply to my last post that my wife actually woke me up early the morning after I had basically given her an ultimatum to choose between our family and her family. She wanted to talk before she and the kids left for my in-laws' camp. To be honest, I was expecting it to be the "I'm not coming back" or "we should get lawyers" talk, but it wasn't. To my surprise, my wife, I called her Carrie on the other sub, so I will do so here too, actually apologized. She said the comment about wanting to spend the weekend with her family had been out of line and intended to hurt me. She was mad, annoyed at me because she knew I was kinda right about what I was saying, and she lashed out. It's not the first time that's happened, so her explanation didn't shock me that much. But she also said that she understood where I was coming from. If we want to fix things, and we both said we do, then lashing out like that needs to stop. And we do need to spend time together as a family. And she completely got why choosing to spend the entire weekend with her family, whose dislike for me had just become public knowledge, instead of being with me, might have been upsetting me. For a moment, I thought she was going to invite me to camp with her, and I'm not gonna lie, I was panicking. I was worried that right after I had more or less demanded she spend time with me, I was going to have to refuse an invitation to do exactly that. But there was no chance I was going to willingly spend 3 days with my mother-in-law or sister-in-law, particularly not after our last counseling session. Carrie didn't invite me. Instead, she offered a compromise. She and the kids would go to camp Saturday and stay until midday Sunday, then come home and spend the rest of the weekend with me. There were some family members of hers who live out in California who would be there on Saturday, and she doesn't get to see them very often, so that actually felt really fair to me. And like Carrie was putting in an honest effort to try and meet me halfway, so I agreed. They left for camp that morning and came back on Sunday as planned, and we had a really nice day and a half together. There was a block party kind of thing on Monday, and we took the kids to that. I made sure to handle baby duty with our daughter as much as possible to give Carrie a break. She seemed pretty appreciative of that, and we got to spend some time with a few of our neighbors that she struck up friendships with, and she introduced me to some of them who I hadn't met yet. It was nice. It felt normal, I guess. But as the day wore on and it got to be time to head back home, I started getting anxious. The kids were wiped and would clearly be heading straight to bed which would leave me and Carrie alone for more than the hour or so we had had on Sunday night. If we followed the counselor's advice, we should spend that time together. I was under no illusion that spending time was going to result in any sort of spousal relations or anything like that. But there would have to be talking, and I was concerned about what topic of conversation wouldn't lead us to some sort of trouble. And it felt like maybe I was right when the first thing Carrie said was that she wanted to talk about the possibility of her having those girls' nights with her mom and sister. We'd essentially punted on that topic during our last counseling session. Other things had come up that had escalated tensions, and the therapist said we probably weren't in the best place to make a good decision about any of it at that moment. But since she had spent a day and a half with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that it came back up. I was surprised that she offered another compromise. She didn't have to cut her work hours down to part-time, she'd just have to adjust hours on other days so she could leave early on the girls' night days and come in late the following day. Apparently, she had already cleared that with her work and could start doing it whenever she wanted, even as soon as this week. She hadn't been at work since our last session, so it was obvious that she'd gotten all this clearance before we had even talked about it with the therapist. On the one hand, I could see how it was a compromise and seemed pretty fair, which was good. On the other hand, I felt sort of misled. Not sure that's the right word. Like she had made the compromise about the weekend to soften me up for the possibility of agreeing to girls' nights. I'll say that might be me being paranoid or overly suspicious, and that's probably a direct result of how many "she's planning to cheat or already is" comments I've gotten here. But just because you're paranoid, that doesn't mean they're not out to get you, right? I did my best to ignore the paranoia, but also get to what was starting to worry me. I asked her flat out why having a weekly girls' night with her mom and sister, something she had never done before, was so important to her now, especially since both mother-in-law and sister-in-law are very actively against our marriage. I said I didn't want to cut her off from them or prevent her from having some fun and an escape, but the idea of her spending an entire night out drinking and in situations where there's a pretty high likelihood of venting or complaining about relationships with two people who might be inclined to encourage her worst instincts when it came to our relationship made me really anxious. I didn't suggest that she might be using it as an opportunity to cheat. I didn't even let on that the thought of that she might actually find someone else had crossed my mind, or the minds of a lot of anonymous Redditors. I stayed as far away from any of that as possible and tried to keep the conversation focused on my worries about her spending that much time with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Carrie said she understood. She said that was a reasonable concern, especially given all that she had shared in our sessions about her mom's feelings towards me. And she said that normally she'd probably give in and stay home and spend that time with me and the kids. But she said, "My sister needs me right now. Her husband left her." Apparently, brother-in-law left sister-in-law the day after the family annual 4th of July party. My in-laws have way too many holiday get-togethers, and my sister-in-law is not taking it well. And when sister-in-law doesn't take something well, my mother-in-law takes it worse. And since brother-in-law was the golden boy, the perfect son-in-law, the one I was always unfavorably compared to, there's a lot of upset and anger and sadness, and Carrie feels like she needs to spend time with her family to support her sister. She wants to help sister-in-law navigate suddenly being a single parent and help her figure out if she can find a way to reconcile with brother-in-law, and basically act like sister-in-law's conscience and keep her from making any bad choices while there's still a possibility of saving her marriage. Bad choices like hooking up with some random guy at a bar during one of their girls' nights, which, as I found out last night in counseling, is exactly the reason brother-in-law left her. She cheated on him. So my wife is asking me to be okay with her spending nights out with her mother, who hates me, and her sister, who cheated and hates me, and not feel any kind of way about all that. And even if I do, it doesn't really matter, as sister-in-law needs her, and Carrie's already made it all good with work. And in doing that, she was compromising on what she really wanted and had asked for. And that's a good thing and a sign of progress for our own reconciliation. Both Carrie and our therapist think if I can just see it in those terms, I'll realize that there's nothing to be worried or upset about. Which is how I got here, writing an update to Reddit while my daughter is napping in her crib next to me and my wife is on her way to her mother's house for girls' night, which got moved to Friday night thanks to the holiday, so she doesn't even have to worry about work tomorrow. And I am just fine with that. Really, I'm totally 100% fine with that. Sure you are, buddy. I even told Carrie that on her way out the door. Go ahead, Reddit. Tell me I'm an idiot. An idiot trying to cling to any small steps in the right direction for his family, but still an idiot. I may update later on the other sub about the last 2 marriage counseling sessions because they were both a lot, but this post was already a novel, and I'm still processing everything I've heard from Carrie and the therapist. I'm slow when it comes to stuff like that. Let me know if anyone cares to hear about it after you get done yelling at me in the comments. Update. I figured I'd be writing about the last 2 marriage counseling sessions, maybe sharing a few insights and hearing from Reddit whether I was still being a pushover. Instead, I'm sitting in one of those awful pleather chairs in the children's hospital, running on no sleep and too much vending machine coffee because our son fell down the stairs yesterday. Here's what happened. We have strict rules about the stairs. No socks, no footy pajamas, always hold the railing, go slow, and if we're there, hold a parent's hand unless we're holding his baby sister. Yesterday, I was home with both kids, carrying the baby down ahead of him. He had one hand on the lower rail we installed for him and seemed fine. Then he just stopped, like something short-circuited, and the next second he went limp and fell forward. I ran, but I was holding the baby and couldn't catch him. He tumbled 6 steps, hit the landing, and I'm pretty sure that's when his arm broke. He didn't even cry out, which scared me more than anything. I called 911 first, then my wife, left a message that probably sounded like the end of the world. Paramedics got there first, got him stable, and we were at the hospital within minutes. They gave him something for the pain and something to calm him down, which is why my wife missed the worst of it when she got there. My in-laws showed up later, as did my parents. For once, there was no drama, no whispering, no blame, no side-eye. Everyone was on their best behavior because apparently that's what it takes for us to act like adults. A kid in a hospital bed with his arm in a temporary splint. No one, not the doctors, not my wife, not even my mother-in-law, has said this was my fault. But the guilt has been chewing through me like acid. I should have been faster. I should have been in front. I should have insisted he wait until I could come back and hold his hand. My wife told me to step out of the room because she could see I was shaking, and she knows me well enough to know that I would spiral if I stayed. He's okay now. His arm is broken, yes, and they've been evaluating him for possible head trauma. But so far, everything looks clean except for what they think was a seizure. He's had 3 more little ones since yesterday, which the doctors called absent seizures. We have a neurologist appointment next week. The guilt is still there, but something else started creeping in while I sat awake in that chair last night. Anger. Not just at myself, at all of it. Because here's the part I thought I'd be writing about. The last 2 counseling sessions. Session 3 was a train wreck. My wife came in already frustrated, saying she felt like I was keeping score about everything. The zoo trip, the weekend at the lake, even how many nights she's gone to bed without saying goodnight to me. She said my constant feelings talks made her feel like she was in an interrogation. I tried to explain that I was just following what the counselor told us to do, but she said it feels like I weaponized the therapy language. Then she dropped a bomb. She admitted she'd been talking to her mom and sister after every session, debriefing them on what we discussed, which explained a lot. The cold shoulder I was getting after sessions, the way my sister-in-law suddenly had opinions about me parenting my own kids. The therapist asked her if that was helpful or just another way to stay angry at me. My wife said it was support. The therapist said it might also be triangulation. My wife crossed her arms and didn't speak much for the rest of the session. Session 4 was a little calmer, but that's when I found out that my mother-in-law has been telling her to think about whether she really wants this marriage since before I even moved back in. My sister-in-law apparently offered to let her and the kids move into their spare bedroom if she needed space again. That one hit me hard. The idea that the backup plan for my family doesn't even include me. When I brought this up after the session, my wife said I was being dramatic. She said that if I really wanted to prove I could be a partner, I should stop obsessing about what her family says and just focus on doing better. I told her it feels like I'm climbing a rope that's tied to a moving car. Every time I make progress, she moves the finish line. She didn't deny it. Now, sitting here in the hospital, staring at my son's tiny cast and thinking about the fall, I can't stop wondering if I want to keep living like this. I love my wife, I love my kids, but I'm starting to see that the marriage didn't break just because I lost my job. I made mistakes, yes, but she's making choices now that are keeping the wound open, and I'm letting it happen because I'm terrified of losing my family completely. I'm not saying I'm leaving her tomorrow. I don't even know what that would look like. But for the first time, I'm imagining what my life might be like if I wasn't spending every ounce of energy trying to win her back. We're being discharged today. My son's excited to have people sign his cast. He's already smacked me in the head with it twice and laughed both times. There's a block party this weekend, and I think we're going to go. Me, him, and his sister at least. My wife says she might go to her mom's instead, and I didn't argue. This will probably be my last update for a while, maybe forever. Consider it the end of this season of my life. I need to think about what comes next, not just for the marriage, but for me as a dad and as a person. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful to so many of you. A lot of you have been blunt, even harsh sometimes, but maybe that's what I needed. Being called spineless or a pushover over and over might have finally knocked some sense into me. I think it's time I take it from here. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I want to start focusing on myself, figuring out who I am outside of just trying to fix this marriage. Maybe stop looking for other people to tell me what to do and start making decisions on my own. Edit. We're home, he's cheerful, the cast is collecting names. Thank you again to everyone who sent kind messages. Good for you, OP. This is the first time I've read one of your updates where it feels like you've taken a real step forward for yourself, not just for the marriage. You can love your wife and still recognize that what she's doing is hurting you. You can want to keep your family together and still set boundaries so you don't lose yourself in the process. The fact that you're even considering what life might look like outside of this constant chase for her approval is huge progress. Whatever happens, you're still their dad, and it sounds like you've been showing up for those kids even in the middle of all this chaos. That counts for so much more than you give yourself credit for. Wow, that was a roller coaster. A sad roller coaster, like one of those rickety county fair ones where you're just holding on and praying it ends soon. If this is the season finale, I hope season 2 is just OP grilling burgers and taking the kids to block parties. Until his ex-wife shows up again, saying that she's sorry she made a mistake, but that things will be different now if he gives her another chance. Isn't that how life always is? Patterns keep repeating, spiraling around in a loop. But if you don't stand in truth, the whole pattern repeats itself again. Right. If you know what love is in your heart, you'll know when you're truly being shown it or you're not. You can't force someone else to discover love in their heart and treat you with it, but you can listen to the signs and remove yourself from people and places that are only there to drain you. Karen pretends to be a therapist in order to sabotage my relationship. I'm 28 male. My girlfriend Emma, who's 27, and I have been together for 6 years. For most of that time, we were happy, like really happy. The kind of relationship people say just works, you know? We were always on the same page, rarely fought, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. But over the past year, things started to feel different. Small arguments here and there, more miscommunication, and just had this weird sense of we weren't as in sync as we used to be. It wasn't anything major, just the usual wear and tear stuff, or so I thought. Emma, however, seemed more concerned. She started pointing out issues I wasn't even aware of, like how I supposedly wasn't listening enough or wasn't as emotionally available as I used to be. I admit I'd been busy with work, but I thought we were doing okay. Still, I didn't want to dismiss her feelings. Then, about 6 months ago, she suggested that we go to couples therapy. Now, I've always been a bit skeptical about therapy unless things are really bad, but I agreed because I figured it couldn't hurt. She said she found a great therapist through a friend and that we should give it a try. I wasn't familiar with this Lily, but Emma was excited about it, so we booked our first session. At first, the session seemed fine. Lily asked good questions, got us to open up, and gave us some tools to communicate better. I felt like I was doing my best to listen and improve, but something about it felt off. Every time we talked about any issue, it seemed like Lily was always subtly siding with Emma. If I mentioned being stressed from work, she'd steer the conversation toward how I wasn't giving enough attention to Emma. If I brought up a disagreement, somehow it became about my communication issues. After a few weeks, Emma started using phrases like, "Lily thinks you should try this," or "Lily thinks you should work on that." It felt like everything I did was being scrutinized and dissected by this woman I barely knew. I didn't want to be paranoid, but it seemed like Lily was slowly convincing Emma that I was the problem in the relationship, and every time I tried to voice my own concerns, they were brushed aside. I tried to push through it, thinking maybe I was just being defensive, but it didn't stop. Every session, the same dynamic. It was like Lily was planting seeds of doubt in Emma's head and Emma was running with them. I even started to wonder if maybe I was the problem. Was I actually this bad of a partner? Things reached a boiling point a couple of weeks ago. During a session, Lily suggested that maybe we should consider a break so that I could work on myself more. That felt like a slap in the face. I'd been trying so hard to be better, and now she was suggesting that we split up? I looked at Emma, waiting for her to disagree or defend me, but she just sat there, quietly nodding along. After that session, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I blew up at Emma when we got home. I told her I didn't trust Lily's judgment, that it felt like she was just feeding Emma reasons to blame me for everything wrong in the relationship. Emma got defensive, saying I was overreacting, that Lily was just trying to help us work through our issues. We didn't talk for a few days, and I started feeling guilty for snapping. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe therapy really was exposing some flaws I needed to work on. But then something happened that blew everything wide open. Last week, we went to a mutual friend's party. While there, I overheard Emma and her friend Sarah talking in the corner, giggling about something. I caught just a bit of their conversation. "I can't believe you pulled it off for this long. Poor guy still thinks she's an actual therapist." I immediately confronted them, and that's when Emma's face turned pale. Sarah quickly tried to backtrack, but the truth spilled out. Turns out, Lily isn't a licensed therapist at all. She's one of Emma's close friends from college who thought it would be fun to help Emma fix me by posing as a therapist. Emma had set this whole thing up because she thought I wouldn't agree to therapy otherwise. They figured that with Lily playing the part, they could guide me into becoming a better boyfriend without me knowing. I felt completely betrayed. For months, I had been spilling my heart out to someone who wasn't even qualified to help, and Emma had been in on it the whole time. All those sessions where I felt attacked and manipulated suddenly made sense because I was being manipulated. When I confronted Emma about how messed up this was, she broke down, saying she never meant to hurt me and that she just wanted to help us grow as a couple. But honestly, I don't know how to move past this. I haven't been able to look at her the same since. Now, Emma and her friends are saying I overreacted, that it was just a white lie meant to help our relationship. But I feel like I've been gaslit and lied to for months. So, am I the jerk for blowing up at my girlfriend when I found out our therapist was a total fraud? Not the jerk. But what you should be doing is consulting a lawyer, because Lily was very likely practicing medicine without a license. What happens when a wild Karen goes to jail at 3 o'clock in the morning and demands OP comes and bails her out? That's what happens in our next video. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap with your thumb or a click with your remote, and Karen and I will be right there waiting for you.